Namaskar, Vanakkam, Sasrikal, good evening, bonjour, hola, marhaba. Welcome to this episode 12 of Soul Strings. People who are coming here for the first time, we welcome you all. People who have been here already, welcome you all too for this episode 12, Transform to Transform by Benny Prasad. We are lucky to have him in this COVID times because he's been traveling around everywhere, and because of the air ban, he's been static at one place, and we are lucky to get him. So we are happy to have him. And he's a man who's traveled to 45 countries in the shortest period of time, and he's known for designer of Bentar, the bongo guitar, and he has Chai 316. He's a manager of that multi-purpose place where they do counseling for a lot of youngsters and students and people who are depressed. And you can have a chai with him. He's got a lot of multiple, herbal teas, different types of teas, green teas. You can just have a cool chat with him and go there and visit in Bengaluru. As you have seen him on online now, he's a very cool guy, but he's a man of faith, and he trusts and has faith in God, fears God. He always stands for the right, and he has good moralities. He's a very humble guy, and he's been from nowhere to somewhere, which he will try to explain to you in the session. And as you have seen him now in the pictures in Instagram, and as you're seeing him now, must be he's like a Rastafarian or like a Bob Marley. So he's a music lover. Any music lovers here, you will enjoy the day today. He may play a little bit of music. And people who are here for the first time, if you feel that you are out of place, if you feel that you are worthless, troubled, struggling in life, and you feel that the life is in a mess, I want to assure you that you are in the right place, the Soul Strings. We are all once upon a time, or we are in that boat, and we have come out of it, and we are here to help one another to come out of it if anybody is troubled. So this is the right platform, and all these things would have not happened if not for Soul Strings and the lady behind it, Dr. Menaca. So I don't want to take much time. I hand it over to Menaca for this episode, and God bless you all, and have a wonderful time today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Frank. The introduction of the speaker and Soul Strings couldn't have been done any better. For all of you, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whenever you are listening to this, and hope you have a great time with us today. And thank you so much for the team members for making this possible, and all the guests who come every week to support us and learn and support each other to grow and become better people. Without further ado, I have immense pleasure and honor in introducing today's speaker, Benny Prasad, because I think he's out of the norm. Today's educational system sometimes let us down, and particularly some students more than others. And I think as parents, as families, as communities, it is definitely important for us to know this and help those kids, help those families to get over this barrier and become the best version of themselves. With that, I would just ask Benny Prasad to introduce himself and tell a few words before I take over and ask some questions to him. Thank you. Here, over to you, Benny.
Yeah, thank you. And firstly, I want to thank Frank for introducing me to Menaca. Otherwise, I don't know which other passage it would have been for me to reach the soul string. Now, and also thank you, Menaca, for having me for this session. And in short, I would say that a brief intro of myself would be, I grew up in a family where education was a prime most important factor, apart from a very spiritual upbringing that I received from my parents. And but the biggest challenge was to keep up either the legacy of my father, who is an aerospace scientist, or something in line with that. Sadly, in India, many times parents or family members only think in a very unidirectional way, that is to continue the legacy of the parents. Even though a lot of Indians are known for achieving high, but a lot of them are very boring if you really talk to them. There's really not much to be talked in that way, because they've just there's no creativity. They've just followed what was being told. And it was just so funny that I remember when I went to the Caribbean islands for a concert tour, and I was in Bahamas. And at the concert, there was a big number of Indian doctors who were present there. And they told that, Benny, it's so nice that you are not a doctor. Now, this is the first time somebody was celebrating my life not being a medical doctor. I said, why? He said, all these people think that Indians can do is only be doctors and nothing else. So being a doctor, Indian doctor in Bahamas was not something very special, because they thought that that's all Indians knew what to do. Same thing if you would go to Kenya or Tanzania or Nigeria, most of Indians are known to be teachers. So most of the times they put them in these compartments. And for me, when I grew up in an environment where I had to do what was told to. And now coming back, I had a very difficult challenge where I was a person who really used to think and ask questions, and I could only move forward if my questions were answered. And my mind was very inquisitive, and my teachers did not appreciate that, because generally in our system, at least when I grew up, it was all about mugging and just repeating what the teacher taught you, and you can't be creative. And even if you are creative, it has to be within the boundaries of the teacher's thinking. And so I lost my interest in studies, and in the process, I had medical problems. I was born with asthma, and from the age of 2 till the age of 16, I was on wrong medication. And as a result of that, 60% of my lungs got damaged and my immune system broke down. And I developed rheumatoid arthritis. And by the age of 16, I had no more hope left, because one, I could not continue my high school. I was considered worthless by the school. Medically, the doctors gave me 6 months to live. And as a family, my parents thought, I was just a failure, and almost a curse to the family. And with all these things going on in my mind, I contemplated to commit suicide. And that was my reality, because I had no other options that I thought of, because medically I was going to die in 6 months. So I thought, why even wait for 6 months?
I'm just going to rewind you back, because I think people will benefit a lot from your childhood. So can I ask you to highlight a bit more on your childhood, and what kind of family pressures or pressures in the school you had for you to feel left out in the first place, and what kind of struggle and how did it make you feel, so that a lot of parents are today here, and I really want them to take this on board and take it home and spread it amongst their families and friends, so that hopefully their children and the coming generations will have a better journey than what you had.
In terms of childhood, well, the first mistake that I would say my parents did was they moved me in my first standard. I was studying in an English medium school, and we moved houses. And in the process, I was put in a Hindi medium school in my second standard. Now, that was a challenge, because moving from one language to another language was challenging, and Indian schools are very competitive, and it was not fun. And so that was the first mistake that parents did, was they moved me from one particular linguistic approach to another one. And suddenly to study in the second standard was very difficult. I was doing very well in my first standard, and suddenly coming to a second standard thing where everything was in Hindi, I failed in that part. Second mistake was the teachers. I had to write an entrance exam in my second standard in order to join the school. And I had no knowledge of Hindi, and everything was in Hindi. And the teachers made the biggest mistake by helping me write that, and hence I passed. And as a result, I struggled all my life in my schooling days because I did not have a proper foundation in Hindi. So helping in the wrong way can be disastrous. And failing can also be helpful because that can help you to process and to climb the ladder that is there in front of you. And so that's what happened in my childhood, is that I suddenly was put into a school where they never had a single failure, and I've stepped in, and I struggled. The teachers were not willing to help me. All that they wanted was marks. All that they wanted was results. My father could not understand, because now many times what Indian parents do, probably it's the same in majority part of the world, is they take their struggles and they talk about how they overcame, and they expect the same or even greater from the child. Like my father came from a remote village in Andhra Pradesh where there was no electricity. From a place like that, he worked hard and he became an aerospace scientist. Now, that is my father's story. Now he tells me, I've given you electricity, what are you doing? Now, you can't really compare his situation, his passion to uh, what I've been going through. But many times people make these mistakes by taking difficult examples. They'll say, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar sat down on the floor and he studied, and he ended up writing the Constitution of India, which is very powerful what he did. But he was passionate about that. But my passion is not Hindi, my passion is not geography or history. And it was so difficult to really fit into a system which I knew that I was not going to really fit in. And I had all kinds of questions like, why do you study algebra? How are you going to use that in your day to day lifestyle? Or what is trigonometry going to do? See, these were my questions that were never answered. And since they were never answered, I could not really do justice to my moving further, moving upward. And but many kids could manage. They would say that, well, this is just a phase, this is just a season. Let me study for the sake of marks and let me move on. But I was not one of them, and hence I struggled a lot with more. I had more questions than answers, and because of that I could not move forward at all. Nobody asked me, what is your dream, what is your passion, what would you want to do in life? As long as everything is to do with financial gain, most of the times parents want children to become doctors, engineers, IT professionals, is mainly because it brings good financial gain. And okay, doctors do serve mankind, but that is not the reason why parents want children to become doctors. No, mainly it is because it brings them good status in the society and good income, and and all the other things. And I tell parents, you want your children to become financially strong, then teach them to be drug dealers. They'll make more money than a medical doctor. Why are you thinking about only money factor? It has to go beyond that. So I struggled with that, and hence I got into bad habits. Like, for example, because I was pressured to excel in my studies, I started to copy. And copying was not something that I liked. That was not something that anybody taught me. But you see, the pressure that was put on me led me towards going into the wrong direction. I started to forge signatures because my parents said that they will not sign my marks report because I scored so less marks. So I ended up learning how to sign my father's signature, my mother's signature, and my principal's signature. Well, the good part is that today I have a very good signature because it's a mixture of all these signatures together. That's the only artistic thing in my life in terms of fine art. But these pressures really put me into a place of being insecure, being worthless, that nothing that I did was considered to be useful or beneficial. Like today, people come and appreciate me and they say, wow, Penny, your inquisitive mind helped you to do so many things. But at that point, my inquisitive mind was considered to be my drawback or my cause of being a failure. So I was mentally tortured in these ways by being
Sure.
called that you are good for nothing.
Thank you so much, Benny. Thank you so much for being so transparent and honestly telling us what it feels like. I personally knew that powerful story, but I want everyone to know and everyone to hear about it, and hopefully we can learn from that. And as you rightly said, I'm sure it is not only parents from India. It is, I think, at least in the Southeast Asian culture, it's definitely ingrained in. I'm going to record what you said about doctors, and when people ask me how come you had to leave dentistry and you are doing coaching or speaking, at least I'm going to play your recording to say I am just following this. Now, thank you so much. Moving forward from there, me being a parent as well now, we also try to live our dreams through our children, through our nieces and nephews. I think that is something we have to be careful about, because each person is unique and each child has their own aspirations, own dreams. And I think that is one part. And the second part, I think it really comes from a place of fear. As you rightly said, curiosity and innovation, creativity, it is all really great things to have from in any field today, from leadership to medical profession to music. Anywhere you need these things, but the reason it doesn't thrive is because there is fear of failure. Parents are worried that their children might fail in life if they do something new. The schools are scared they might lose the league tables, or their children might not, students might not do well if they try something different. And I think all these restrictions, and in the spirit of helping the students or helping the children, I think somehow it is being misled, and a lot of pressure has been put on these children. So thank you so much for highlighting these things. So going from there, what would you advise the teachers and parents to do to be able to cultivate children to be independent, to be creative, to be innovative, and become better leaders of tomorrow?
I think the key factor is to develop character rather than just head knowledge. Because if the character can be developed, then you know that all the other things would really fall into place. Like, for example, if a particular character about being content can be developed, then you know that you will really not become greedy, because the opposite of being content is being greedy. And being greedy can lead you into all kinds of mess, including getting into huge debts and having one credit card to clear the loan of another credit card, and all these things. So if you have a good character of being content, then you don't really get into the mode of greed. And see, these are important things. Like I remember that I've learned these principles from an early stage, is to be content with what I have. And the other aspect about character is, there's one verse from the Bible that I really cherish a lot, which it says, it is a blessing to give than to receive. See, the world teaches how to keep getting and building your empire. But whereas, honestly, even if we all do a test, no matter how much we receive, you might have received, say, a big check for your job after end of a month. But when you give something from what you have earned, the joy of your giving, even though it is smaller compared to what you have received, is far greater than what you have received. So the joy of giving is far greater than the joy of receiving. Now, this is a character issue actually. But most of the time, you see what's happening in the world today is people are just stacking things for themselves. They're only thinking about themselves. And hence, they become more and more lonely. And the world is getting very lonely. And that's why people are getting more and more depressed and so on and so forth, because they're just becoming secluded from everything else and they want to put up a show. To be real, that's another thing. Talk about reality of your life. Sometimes I wonder, how come someone who has achieved so much in life can become bankrupt? Some of these movie actors and actresses, or some of these sports personals, they have achieved so much and some of them have gone bankrupt. You wonder how. That is because it's all about showmanship. They want to just pretend that everything is going well and then they're just going. So to be real, to tell people it's okay, I've failed in this area, I'm struggling in this area. To be real helps you to really become a better person rather than trying to faking it out in front of people and saying that I can't, I can achieve this and I can do this and this. So I would say that if teachers and parents can cultivate character in children, and studies can be secondary. Now, in terms of education, I would say that, try to see the area, what a child really enjoys. I remember speaking in one of the schools, and the principal was so moved that the principal came and asked me, um, well, first, the principal showed me a painting, and I was amazed at this painting. And the principal said, this is an 8th standard student. He is completely messed up in his studies, but he did this art. And I said, wow, this is brilliant. This is world class. And I told the principal, please focus on the child's artistic abilities, because ultimately for him, science and geography and all these things will not matter, because no matter what he would study, he is going to use his art in order to exhibit what he wants to portray, what he wants to share. And so the principal took it deep into heart, because I told the principal, I'm a 10th standard failure. I have not finished my high school. And yet today, I've been asked to come and speak for graduation ceremonies in colleges, in schools, in high schools, when I've not even finished my own high school. And see, what I would tell the teachers is, if you can focus on building character, and secondly, if you can really highlight what are their passions and what are their gifts, and then if you can mentor them, if you can nurture them, they will remember that for a long way, and then they will be able to really achieve things. Well, now, Google and Apple and Tesla, all these guys are not even looking at your degree certificates anymore, because it's all about what you can do. It's not about what is there in your head or what is there on your paper or your mark sheet. It doesn't matter at all. And so that is what I would tell the parents and the teachers to focus on.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, because I'm sure you know the story. Thomas Alva Edison, when he was in school, actually the school sent a letter to his mom, and the mom read the letter and told him, actually, the way she told him is that you are so clever, you are so unique and special. They don't have the ability to teach you. I will start teaching you from now on, because they don't have teachers to your standards to teach you. And what happened is, going forward, she would take him to the library and teach him and all that. To cut the long story short, years later, when she was, I think she has passed away, she was very ill, and he looked at this letter. Actually, he was expelled from the school, saying he is not fit for the education, and we know the rest is history. We all know what he did and how we are even today benefiting from it. So, that is, I think, Benny, listening to your story, I couldn't stop thinking about that story, because I think it is so much of relevance to your story. And I'm so sorry I interrupted at that time when you were talking about your mental health struggles and suicidal tendencies. And so I just want to know, I know you became, a star in music. So if you could tell us, what was your mental health struggle, and what was your journey about it, and how you got into music, please? Thank you.
Bullied in school, bullied for various factors, bullied because of my health, bullied because I have a voice that sounds like a girl. So people made fun of my voice. People made fun of my failures because I could not really do well. So I was bullied continuously by my classmates in school, and also the teachers. Teachers made fun of me. I still remember one incident which is so fresh in my mind, which I can't even comprehend why the teacher did. And this was in my ninth standard. So I was about 14. And the teacher, the biology teacher, forgot to bring the skeleton map. So she needed to talk about ribs that day. And since she forgot to bring the map, so she wanted someone to come and she would explain. And so she forced me to come forward in front of the entire school. And I was a person who was very ashamed of my body. So I used to cover myself, whether it was summer or winter, I would completely cover myself. And this teacher came up and she forcefully brought me in front and she made me take off my shirt. So I was in my bare body, and then she started to explain how ribs were, and that I was very skinny. And so every student was asked to come and check out my ribs. And then they started to make fun and they started to laugh. But the teacher never thought that it was wrong, because for her, she thought that at least by humiliating Benny, he might learn a lesson. So this is another problem in the Indian culture, that many times parents and teachers humiliate in public, but they appreciate in secret. But it's very different in the Western world, where they appreciate in public, and when they need to correct, they would do it in secret. And so I struggled with all these factors. So I had very low self-esteem, or even, for example, when we all went to church, we when the pastor or the priest would mention a particular verse, and I would be the first one to open, and I was very quick in opening, but I struggled to read it in public because I was scared where I would make mistakes and people. You see, I struggled with being in public, and these were my challenges. So at 16, for me there was nothing left, no gifts, no talents. I even went for music lessons, and on the first day, the teacher told me, please don't come back again. You have no talents, you have no gift in music. You can neither sing in tune nor clap to the right beat. And so all these factors mentally put me in a place thinking that, true, I am a failure. And because these are the results, and these results clearly showcase that I am a totally a broken mess and I cannot be fixed. That's what I learned from the world. And so I wanted to kill myself. That an incident that happened at 16, which has been part of my speech everywhere I go, because this is my personal journey, that at 16, at the lowest point of my life, is when I heard an audible voice of Jesus. By then I had lost the interest of spirituality or religious aspect of lifestyle. I just did all that what my parents did. And in fact, for example, my father told me, if you don't go to church, you will not get your lunch. So for me, my incentive of going to church was having lunch. This was something that I just followed by tradition, and it meant nothing for me. It was just a total waste of time. But at 16, I heard the audible voice of Jesus Christ. And he told me, Benny, even though you are called useless, I want you. I can transform your life and make you a new person. And I always wanted to start fresh. But it was so difficult because people remember your past, that they don't give you a chance to move forward, because they always bring back your past failures. Even if you want to try something, they'll say, oh, but remember last time you tried this and you failed. So the world can be so negative in pointing out our failures, rather than being positive in helping us to move forward. Or you have the other side of the world, where they are so positive that they're lying. They're completely lying by telling, oh, you can sing really well. You look at some of these American Idol singers, some of them cannot sing in tune at all. But when they are interviewed, they said, but all my friends told me I could sing. So you have, see, encouragement, which is positive, should be honest and truthful. Being honest helps a person to grow. Even if they are not in the right path, we have to tell them what is the right path. So for me at 16, that was the turning point in my life when I surrendered my life into the hands of Jesus Christ and started off a fresh new walk. I quit the idea of committing suicide and pursued the passion of music. You know, I picked up broken strings at the age of 19, tied them together because I did not have enough money. You see, when you are passionate, money is not a concern at all. You will always find a way. I remember this girl, I think her name is Deepthi, or I can't remember her exact name. She's from Tripura in the northeast part of India, and she stood fourth in the Olympic Games in gymnastics, which is not a common sport in India. And she learned it on a broken scooter. And imagine there are so many of them who have all the facilities to learn and still cannot make it to the Olympic Games. But there is this girl who was so passionate that she learned it on a broken scooter. So the same thing for me, I learned it from broken strings, tied them together, put them on the guitar, and I started to practice. So parents, if you can help your child find their passion and encourage them, then sky is the limit. You don't have to sit with them and keep telling them study, study, study. You look at Facebook, no kids go and ask the parents, Mommy, how do I post picture? Daddy, how do I tag this picture? No. They all love Facebook, they love Instagram, they automatically learn these things. Imagine if studies was something like Facebook and Instagram. The world would be so different. But many times we are only caught up with the financial gain. If we can move the money part to the side, and if we can focus on life, if we can focus on what can my child enjoy in life today, what can I enjoy in life today? That's another thing. Many of the grown-ups, when I talk to them, I'll tell you more than 50% of them are working and getting a good salary, but they are not happy with their job at all. I'd rather stay in a hut and live a happy life than live in a mansion and cannot even get a proper good night's sleep.
Thank you so much, Benny. It is so powerful to know that, because I think I wrote an article recently about sailing through like a swan. Because what happens is, we are guided, and, one education system to the other, and then we take a job, we get on with it. And we are in a culture, in particularly with certain professions, for surely healthcare professionals, we go through like swans. We want to look composed. We want to look as if we have got everything together, but yet underneath the water, if somebody sees, we are paddling along, and our life is full of chaos. And, that's what happens. And I have been testament to it myself. And, like you, I always say I have been the queen of failures. I have failed many times. I made mistakes, but it is really important to give that opportunity for people to accept and move on and say, nobody is perfect. Nobody can be perfect. And we all have our shares of mistakes, shares of learning, shares of shortcomings. And that's what makes us a normal human being. And, it is almost, we almost live in a world of positivity so much that we are expected to be this perfect model and being talented and gifted in every area of your life, which is literally impossible. And I think that creates so much of pressure. So thank you so much. I want to touch upon your marriage, because I was really intrigued and interested how you met your wife. And I know it is, these days it's becoming more and more rare. I am no example of it. So I rather learn from you how you met her and how you have made that recipe to live happily ever after.
Thank you. Well, my wife is from the northeast part of India, from the state of Nagaland, which actually borders between India and Myanmar. And we both we worked with an organization called YWAM, Youth with a Mission. And so it was the 10th anniversary in Lonavala. And I was the speaker, and she was part of the music team. And so that's how we first met each other over there. And then her director did mention about Zan, and well, her name is Zan Benny. We call her Zan in short. And so he mentioned about her and said that, Benny, here is this girl who really is very talented. And so in character wise, she's good. So when he suggested, I said, okay, and we did chat before. And so then we took it further and we sat down and we took it serious. We talked about our values. We talked about life. And within a month's time, we got married actually. And so that's how marriage stood. And even in our wedding, we wanted to be an example because many times, weddings are very lavish in India. People end up spending a lot of money. And a lot of the times, their struggles also are because of the finances. So we decided that we will keep our wedding simple and that we will save and we will bless others. So that's what we did. We decided not to give any food at our wedding. We just gave snacks and tea and coffee. And that was a big question mark from many people. And then I told them that, if the food is good at a wedding, you'll remember for a week. If the food is bad, you'll remember for a month. But if you don't serve food at all, they'll remember you for a lifetime. And so that's what happened. It's been about 4 years. We have been married, and people still remember what happened at our wedding. We spent a lot of money, and we used that money to bless a family who needed money to renovate their house. So we started off our married life by giving rather than clearing loans and debts that normally most Indian weddings go through.
Thank you, Benny. And I know in the era of couples coming from horses to helicopters, and I know you set an example by going by the auto. Am I right?
Yes, we used 2 auto rickshaws, and we came to our wedding, and it was really nice because see, I always like to be creative, and creativity does not mean putting more money. That's another problem people have, is they think that if you have to be creative, which means you have to really put in a lot of money. But today, thank God for YouTube, that a lot of people talk about creativity at the lowest expense, and that's why this DIY, do it yourself, has become so popular that people can learn and save money and yet be creative. And here we were creative by using auto rickshaws, and which was brilliant. People loved it. People went one side, people stood in the line to take pictures with us, and the other side, people stood in the line to take pictures with the auto rickshaw as though they've never seen it before. But it was very interesting.
Thank you so much, Benny. For the participants, in a nutshell, if you want a recipe for happily ever after marriage, you go without the meal for the guests. Just kidding. Okay. Going forward from there, can I ask you about the traveling you have done? I know you have set a record and you have traveled worldwide, and I'm sure the participants would love to know how you started that journey and what happened next and what made you want to do it.
I never thought that I could travel the world. That was beyond my human comprehension. I lived a very simple life, and so getting money was the biggest challenge because travel requires a lot of money. So my dream was just that, I wish I would go to some country one day before I die. That was my ultimate dream in terms of traveling. But God had a bigger plan for my life. And I remember 1998 when there was a retreat in Sri Lanka, which was organized by an organization called CFO, Camp Farthest Out. And I was part of their board, but I was just a small guy, nothing, nothing with a major role. But that year they offered to give one free ticket from each region, and from India. Now, when one free ticket, now whom does it go to? So everybody, like, they would struggle. Where will it go? So finally, nobody had a problem when my name was suggested, because I was nobody. Nobody knew me, so nobody had a problem. So they told me, Benny, you have a free ticket to go to Sri Lanka. And so that's how I started off my journey. There was this man called Uncle Charles, who was the one who facilitated everything. And on 15th of August, 1998, I landed in Colombo, and from there went to Kandy. And so that was my first country that I had ventured on from Trivandrum. In those days, it was called Air Lanka when I took that flight. Now, later on in 2002 is again, I went back to God and I said, God, what do you want to do with my life? So for me, it has been something that I always connect my divine relationship with God to my practical lifestyle here on earth. And I don't separate that. It is not like, on one side, you just try to be good on one day, and then on the other side, you just separate. I don't separate my spiritual walk to my practical physical lifestyle here on earth. So I asked God, what do you want me to do? And that is when I heard from God saying, Benny, I want you to travel to every country by 2010. And I said, God, this is impossible. Look at my financial condition. I had about $25 a month those days. And I have an Indian passport, which required literally visas to almost every country in the world at the time. And so it was just not a practical dream to have when you have just $1,000 a month, you have an Indian passport, you have physical challenges, and also a task which nobody had done at the time. And well, till today, no musician has done this actually. So I took up that. I said, God, you provide for me. I will travel the world. And my principle was that I will never ask for money. I will never borrow money. I will never take a loan from the bank or trust the credit card. So these were my 4 financial principles. And I started my journey with that, lived with what I had, and I was able to travel to every country. And in 2010, I arrived in my last country, Pakistan. At the time, I broke the world record and became the fastest man to travel to every country in the shortest time. That is 245 nations, including Antarctica, both sovereign and dependent countries, in 6 years, 6 months, and 22 days. So thus I broke the world record. And I lived a very, very simple life. In fact, the man who had the world record before me had spent about, I think around $700,000 or so to travel to 218 countries. And I spent about $140,000 to travel to 245 countries. And he did it in 2009, and I did it in 2010.
Well done. Well done, Benny. I'm so proud of, I'm sure we all are proud of you,
Thank you.
And what you have achieved, actually. And all I can say, the only similarity is my first country to visit by flight was India. I was forced to travel because of the war. I left Sri Lanka and entered India by Air Lanka. So when you were telling me, I'm like, okay, at least, find the positive in everything, right? I have found one similarity.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know before I go into your Chai 360, I would love to know, you invented and designed Benta, and can you enlighten us and all the participants, why did you do it, and what is so different about it, and what do you do with it now?
The guitar, I call it Bentar. It was in 2004 when I designed it. And the whole reason was I was invited to perform at the Olympic Games for the cultural stages, as well as for the official welcoming of the South African athletes. And during that time, I was clearly told that I can only play my music, but not share my journey. And for me, my journey of being broken, being suicidal, to having reached the Olympic Games, a story of being completely um, suicidal, to having a relationship with God, all these things were a crucial point of my life, which I like to share to the world. And that is when my music would move from being entertaining to becoming inspirational and impactful. And for me, I believe in impacting people and inspiring people rather than entertaining people. Because entertainment, yes, it makes you feel good for 3 hours, but after that, it's gone. You come back to the situation. So that situation is what pushed me towards designing a guitar the world has never seen. I prayed and I asked God to help me to design a guitar the world has never seen. And mind you, I've never studied how to design guitars. I cannot draw anything. If I try to draw a circle, it becomes a line. And if I try to draw a rectangle, it becomes a hexagon. And, it's just, I don't have the concept of drawing. And here, it's purely a miracle that God gave me the idea to design a guitar and then gave it to Tulsi Guitars in Chennai, which became the world's first guitar with drums inside. And the reason I designed it is so that when people look at this guitar, they would come and ask me, how did you design this? Or where did you get the idea? Or who made this guitar? And when they start asking me questions, in turn, I could journey of being hopeless to where I've reached. And hopefully that story can become an inspiration to somebody. So that is the reason why I designed this guitar. And I use that guitar very much. And it probably about 3 years ago, no, 4 years ago now, I've taken a break from that guitar. It requires a lot of practice, and each song takes me at least 2000 hours of practice for me to put that together. So all of that would take a lot of time, and hence I just had to uh,
Amazing journey you have had. And everyone who knows me, they know how much passion I have for mental health, and I'm an advocate for mental health. I'm very open about it. I have struggled with it myself, and it is a journey many of us have. So I think more and more of us should talk about it. I have huge respect for you, not only wanting to talk about it, but you have really have done so much with that struggle and created something positive. So I know that you have the cafe, Chai 360 Cafe in Bangalore, and it is one of my
yes.
favorite cities because that is where I became a dentist. I had my first job. I had made lifelong friends, including Frank, Radhika, and many people on the platform today. So it is one of my favorite cities as well. And I know that you have Chai 360 Cafe in Bangalore. Can you please tell the participants and audience about what it is about and what do you really do there?
Well, Chai 316 is a 400-seater cafe, but it's a non-commercial cafe. It's a cafe where we serve only tea, and the price of the tea is decided by the students who walk into the cafe. And now in this cafe, what we do is our main goal is to sit down and listen. Our goal is 80% listening and 20% talking. And it took about 2 years to build this. And when I finished traveling to every country by 2012, I had finished traveling to 250 countries, 57 actually, yeah, 257 countries. And so there was no more countries left. And then I asked God, how can I design something, something that I can really reach out to people who are struggling in this manner. So this is in this way. What I did was I put all my resources, my friends helped, all kinds of people came together and built this 400-seater cafe called Chai 316. Chai means life in Hebrew, and 316 is a verse from the Bible which talks about eternal life. And what we do in the cafe is to help people rescue from a dying situation to leading them to life. And so that's what the cafe is all about. Is all that we do is we sit and listen, and we listen till they stop talking. That is, uh, the longest one sitting session we had was 8 hours on a single day from a single person. We listen and listen and listen till they pour out. And once they have done that, then we sit down and share our own journeys of pain and suffering and brokenness and failures, and help them to come out of depression or suicidal tendencies. And in the process, we are able to help them to move from a dark situation into the light.
Sure. Thank you so much. That is definitely on my list when I visit Bangalore one day. So as soon as I land Bangalore, one of the very first places to visit would be your cafe next time. It's an amazing project and I have huge respect. I'm sure like a lot of people are waiting to ask a lot of questions. Before we finish, let me ask you one last question. For the students who are struggling right now, the families who are witnessing that, or even friends and the communities who are addressing these problems, what 5 tips would you give to them?
Parents, few things I want to tell them is that I tell that, one of the main reasons for depression among educated students is because they're sitting in the wrong classroom. Their passion is one thing and they're studying something else. Like I remember this particular girl, she's studying commerce and accounting. And so she's not interested at all. And so she's getting depressed sitting in the class. So she comes up and she says, life is so boring. I said, why? And then I asked her, what is your passion? What do you want? She says, I want to become a fighter pilot. And then she said, I'm studying accounts because my mom thinks accounting is safer than being a fighter pilot. And so you see, many of the kids are very smart, but when you put them in the wrong classroom, it is just like literally suppressing their creativity and their passion. So it's important to really sit down and try to understand what are the challenges of the kids. Now, secondly, is a lot of the times the 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 children are not taught how to handle freedom and independency. Another major reason of depression and suicidal tendencies that among the young people that we see is because of broken and untimely relationships. And see, many of them come from very conservative families where they've protected their child very much. And so they've not known what is life outside, living on their own, because many times parents the decisions for their children. And once it comes to a time for going to college, they choose Bangalore and then they send them here. And so the kid is on her own or on his own for the first time. And they don't know how to handle that freedom, handle that independency. And many of them really get into wrong habits because that's not being talked about in the family. And many of them end up into unnecessary relationships, and they go so deep they don't know how to get out. And so once their hearts are broken and they don't want to live anymore. And so I tell a lot of them when they come and ask me, how do I handle these emotions and these attractions and things, I always tell them that it is good if you really process your life and take what are the things that are important in life. Now, for example, I tell them, if your focus is to study and then being in a relationship at this point where your studies are so much, and you have so many projects, and you have so much to cope up with. On top of that, you have so many extracurricular activities. And I would tell them it is better if you can really keep your relationships later on rather than now, because then you have to really uh, balance your time between a relationship with your boyfriend or a girlfriend and your studies, and you will not be able to do that. And nowadays, what happens is that when a child when a boy or a girl in a relationship, if the girl is sick with fever, automatically the boy becomes sick also. And that is, I don't know how that works, but emotionally they get, and that, I think, that is what is viral fever, because it's virally connected between the two. But a lot of the times these relationships have led them into depression, and even to the point of suicide. So if you can teach your children how to handle these situations in life, rather than suddenly pushing them into this space of freedom and independency, and that will help a child to be much more stronger and to face the challenges. So that's what we do with these young boys and girls.
Sure. Thank you, Benny. Before I'm going to ask you to play something for us, but before that, how has been your experience with Soul Strings, and any feedback for us how we can take it forward and make it any better in any way at all?
Well, it's been good for me. I've enjoyed being here with you all and talking about a reality of life, and talking a very straight talk, very honest talk, to bring in the challenges. And I think that uh, trying to understand the audience, what are their challenges, and trying to be relevant based on that would be really helpful, because a lot of information is being poured out in this world today. But an information that is relevant is what matters. The issue would be to know what kind of audience you have, and what are the challenges they are facing, and how can these speeches be more relevant to the audience, rather than just be nice, good, strong information.
Thank you so much, Benny. We are definitely taking that on board, and let me take that action right away. So for all the participants, if you want any particular topics, any questions answered in the future, please put it on the chat box or in our WhatsApp group, and we will definitely take it on board and make sure that we design those episodes around it. And Swati, Sujit, if you can, please share the WhatsApp group link there so that they can join in, and it is quite active for those who are already there. They already know that. And lastly, can I please request you that to play something for us? I, for one, cannot wait to hear it, and I'm so looking forward to it, and it's a pleasure to hear it from on Soul Strings.
I will play the song on the pan flute, and this song, it says, "Give thanks with a grateful heart." And this is the song that I played at the Paralympic Games in London in 2012 as part of the Dada Fest. And this was the first time I started to play the pan flute also. And in fact, that was the first song that I learned to play on the pan flute. And it's a beautiful song, and hope that will be a blessing to each one of you. So let me play that. And
sure. Thank you so much. It's such an honor, someone who has played in London Paralympics, to be able to play in Soul Strings. So I cannot wait. Over to you, Benny.
Thank you.
so much. Thank you so much. It was such an honor to, hear you play that. And I'm sure one day soon I will probably hear it on live when you play. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Okay, before I hand it over to Radhika for vote of thanks, I would love to introduce the next speaker for the next week. The next speaker would be Dr. Hari Balaji, and he is in Tamil Nadu, India, and he is a disaster specialist. So he has changed from hotelier to humanitarian, and he has worked in America, Europe, and in India. And I know he's also a visiting professor for many universities. And so, I can't wait to see him come and speak on the platform as well. And he is also, with a lot of from tsunami to the war to now the COVID-19, I'm sure we would love to hear from a disaster specialist. So I can't wait to hear from him. He interviewed me on his TV a couple of months back. And since then, we became friends, and I have invited him to be a speaker here. Thank you so much, Benny. Really enjoyed that speech. Over to Radhika to give the vote of thanks, please.
Namaste, everybody. Thank you so much, Benny. What a vehement, pragmatic, and informative speech that we have had from you. And, the level of your, I can say that the struggle or success is so down to earth that it's really, kind of, it really requires, rather, it's appreciated, and it deserves a lot of, applause. And your being stoical and being ostracized, and you being acrimonious since beginning, and that sudden epiphany that occurred to you when you were 16, and from there your journey that began, which was previously filled with so much of exasperation, and then of course that your talents you could not hold back, and finally I feel a person who's talented can never be hidden from the world. And your journey from, your desire to travel the world, or at least one country to begin with, and then traveling the whole, you became a globetrotter completely, and then being called for Paralympics, and then this guitar that you formed, and then this amazing music that we all just witnessed. It's all very, very, I'm at loss of words actually, to be very honest. But I only think that I can succinct is that you are a true maverick and an inspiration that not only children, all of us need at this hour. Thank you so much for giving us this marvelous, marvelous speech.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your kind words. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Radhika. Radhika and Frank for introducing Benny, and Radhika and Frank and me, we went to dental school together. So we have known each other almost for 30 years, 3 decades. And, I can only count the blessing. 3 decades later, we are still together in the same platform. So thank you so much for everyone. Okay, it has been a great session. For those who are listening to this from Facebook, thank you so much for joining us and listening to us from there. However, we will be stopping the live telecast from now, because to make sure the questions people ask are private and the privacy is maintained at all times, and because we have to be responsible as a talk show host. So we will see you next time, same place, same time. Until then, be happy, keep safe, and keep smiling.